My portraits used to suck. The skin would look lifeless and flat, and all I saw was these other artists doing it effortlessly. It seemed like a mystery to me. That is, until I spent a year learning and crafting these 5 steps that'll help you transform your portraits like they did mine. We start off with a sketch, and do this by identifying the outline of our character, which is kind of contrary to popular practice. I used to be a strict Loomis method user when initially learning, however, sketching like this can be really helpful as well, especially if you want to break out of the habit of thinking linearly. But what do I mean by that? Well, in William Morgan's book, he talks about seeing the face as different light and shadow forms. By going from big to small with my sketch, starting with the outline, I'm only concerned with the contours that separate the planes in terms of light and shadow. With this approach, I'm able to convincingly locate all the features and prepare my brain for what's next to come. By the way, if you're liking this so far, I think you'll like the full-length version of this breakdown with all the context of how I learned this exact topic on my Patreon. I've even got a full 17-page PDF guide to match. Links in the description, and back to the video. This I learned from Sam Does Arts, which is blocking in the general shape, locking the layer, and painting in the local colors for the different elements of the portrait. And after all the local colors are established, I'll paint in some reds and other colors to add some color variation and subsurface scattering immediately. This is crucial. If you want believable skin, you need the underlying red flesh to show through the skin. Now, this is probably the hardest stage, and it's one that stumped me again and again. I would struggle with muddy colors and a flat-looking painting. That's because I didn't pay attention to the direction of the light source and how the planes interacted with the light, nor color shifting. Now, even though this is stylized and I'm simplifying things a bit with the planes, I always keep the Asara head as a guide so I can ensure my painting starts getting some actual three-dimensionality. And to fix my colors, my process goes a little like this. When I add my first bit of shadow, I look at the places where the shadow is most obvious, like the side next to the nose and under the chin. I carve out those shadow shapes with a darker, more saturated color that's warmer in hue. This is known as color shifting, and it's crucial you do this when painting skin. Then I look at the most obvious places of light, which is located on the cheekbone and forehead. I paint in blobs of light that are less saturated and more bright and colder in hue. I continue to carve out the larger planes and blend them, and when I notice slight changes in color, like this desaturated blue on the cheeks, I move my color picker more to the gray and slightly shift the hue to the blue. Doing this helps you accurately display slight hue changes and is a game changer. I coupled that technique with just glazing the additional color variation I see with a very saturated color, all while continuing to carve out the planes. Now I've gotten to a point where I need to add the eyes, nose, mouth, so I can really progress with this portrait. So I need a new layer. So now I add a new layer, paint in the eyes, the eyebrows, and the eyelids, really trying to make sure they wrap around the eye to show the three-dimensionality of it. I do this by picking my shadow color and then going back to my local color / light color and pushing that back into the shadow to create a transition. I'll then add in the local color to the lips, adding more detail to it, like the shadow on the left plane and the light around the top of the form, and I'll adjust the shadow under the lower lip to accentuate the circular shape of the chin. After that, I'll grab a mixer brush with a painterly texture to create some transitions and to help make the piece more cohesive. I'll then supplement that with working on smaller transitions in the features before getting to the final stage. Now this is the stage where the painting really comes to life. Here I'll use different layer modes like color dodge, multiply, and filter adjustments like stylize, color aberration, Gaussian blur, and noise, as well as some textured brushes to finish. With 2 new layers, I'll inject some bright saturation with color dodge, supplement that with cool shadows using multiply, then merge everything down to 1 layer. I'll then duplicate that layer and go to filter, stylize, and get this result here. I'll change the layer mode to linear burn and adjust its opacity, and just like that, I've got free line art. Now I'll add some final texture with this rake brush thing and halftone, adding it where I think it'd look cool and to help accentuate the highlights. I'll then slightly adjust the curves and add some noise at around 4% for some texture, and I'll head over to channels, click on red, and then select the painting and move the selection 2 clicks to the left for color aberration. Finally, on a new layer, I'll go to filter, add some Gaussian blur, and erase the parts where I want my viewer's eyes to be drawn. A few additional final touches and tweaking of plane transitions, and let's make those highlights a little brighter with color dodge, and that's pretty much it. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.